It's Waxing Lyrical, baby.
Hello, Waxers, and welcome to Waxing Lyrical, Mainz and Dutch. I'm your host, Mainz, and in this Waxing Lyrical Derby weekend, it's my host and friend in neighbouring Rainford, Mr. Neil Dutton. How are we, Neil?
It's not really a relevant fixture, though, is it? Let's be honest. On paper it is, but...
The problem is, though, that was what I was going to say. The problem is, however much we wish it wasn't, because our teams haven't been very good and actually continue to not be very good, it actually is tremendously relevant, considering if things go as everyone expects this weekend, all three yourself, ourselves, and the Dallas Cowboys will all be tied for the division lead at 6-6. Now, I'm not suggesting that anyone is going to win the Super Bowl, but there's a good chance we could be in the west of a spot of early game Saturday if we're not careful.
That's it. We don't want to be looked at as, that sacrificial lamb to the television gods.
But I think there's a chance we could be, or any of the three of them playing. Well, then again, it depends. At the moment, for some unknown reason, Washington not top of the division, but in the playoffs as the wild card, given the fact that they have beaten the Panthers and have a better have a better conference record than the Seahawks.
That's it. Those two losses to the Rams could potentially hurt the Seahawks, but that assumes that the Washington aren't going to go straight into the tank from here on out.
I was going to say, I think, yeah, you've hit the nail on the head there. Firstly, I think Seattle still have to play Arizona and San Francisco at least 3 times. And Washington, although do have Jacksonville, who will come on too soon. On the sked, they do have to play Philadelphia twice, the Giants again, who they've already beaten, and I don't think have ever beaten twice in the season ever in the history of the world. So I'm not holding out much hope.
It is sadly ironic, of course, that one of Plainsville, Florida's greatest sons, Tom Petty, obviously I know it's not the same place as Jacksonville, but one of his signature tunes was Free Fallin', which is quite clearly what the Jacksonville Jaguars are doing.
Absolutely. I think we'll come on to that, Neil. So that's week 13. We are running heavy and fast into talking playoffs, not only fantasy, but real time. We'll start with the news of the day. We'll plug into the Mainz, try and get some information to you. Then head deep into fantasy. Dutton will give you a fancy darling, a fancy loser. And then we call it Mainz and Dutch DraftKings of the week, but it's who to avoid if you pick Neil's team and who to pick if you got mine. Because as everyone knows, you either had CMC and won this week, or you didn't and lost.
Or you just continually process over results is what I keep telling myself. Unfortunately, it's the process over results that keeps burning me at these bargain bin quarterbacks.
I was feeling tremendously dangerous with Baker Mayfield and was very happy. Much like we've done in the past, I think at least one of a pass catcher or a quarterback should be playing the Cincinnati Bengals every week. I continue that trend this week.
Yeah, funny you should mention that.
Let's plug into the Mainz, Dutton. And as you know, I love being right. It's one of my favourite activities. And you know what? Boy, was I right on the Green Bay Packers infrastructure. I've been right for 3 years, but boy, I'm getting righter by the moment. You know how bad it is, Dutton? Ollie Hunter is having to shave his beard for flip's sake. This is what it's become. He's going to become a man with no hair on his face.
All right, yeah, you were right. It's incredible. But the thing is, though, let's look. We talked about how in the past it was easy to overlook maybe the shortcomings of the offensive system in Green Bay because it was working. It was only when you saw the same offense go to the Giants and it not work that you realise maybe this offense is actually terrible. You just need a Hall of Fame level player to operate it. But now you see that Hall of Fame level player, the well has run dry for him of what he can get out of this. Don't be wrong, he's not playing well. Aaron Rodgers is not playing well. I don't care anyone can tell me. But this offense is painfully crap to watch.
I don't think he is playing well. But all I am ever told from anybody who I trust and listen to and believe opinions of, is that Aaron Rodgers is one of the most, if not the most talented quarterback of all time. Is that not true? Do we hear that from multiple people who we trust and admire?
Yes, multiple times a week.
He's been to one Super Bowl. He's won. I think he's got around 500 record in the playoffs. So something, if that statement is true, something is wrong with the rest of the team and the coaching. So when someone, Ian O'Connor interviewed Tom Brady and they asked what would Aaron Rodgers do in the Patriots system, he said he'd throw for 7,000 yards.
Well, we've talked about this. It was that someone put on Twitter the game. Was it? Yeah, it was when the Patriots played the Chiefs. They went, here are the throws Tom Brady has to make on third down, and he's thrown to receive pass catchers who don't have a defender within a yard, 2 yards. They went, here are the throws Aaron Rodgers has to make on third down, and you're seeing men double covered, not getting open. They've not been schemed open. And it's like, yeah, I know Brady, Rodgers can convert that, but you're relying on miracles, and as someone who is linked to Aaron Rodgers from the days of draft past, Andrew Brandt is fond of saying, hope is not a plan. And if you just throw the ball up there and hope someone can win it, well, why not scheme them open?
But I just look and think there's been I don't know, and sometimes maybe it's easy for teams to do this, that you just get into a position where you just think it'll be all right, our quarterback will save us, so we'll cut a few corners, save a bit of money here, save a bit of money there, and then you just actually look at the offense, the talent on display, and you're like, this isn't very good. This isn't very good. At the moment, Mitchell Trubisky, who we all laugh at because he's not very good, has thrown
Tebowski. Yeah,
it's thrown for 2,500 yards and 20 touchdowns. So his team is doing something right. Do you know what I mean? The third in points 28.8. They're throwing, okay, not a lot, 234 a game. But you're like, every time I watch Mitchell Trubisky, he's throwing it to a dude who's got no one around him.
And they're playing complementary football, as you say. I mean, you look at the pieces around Rodgers. They've got a good offensive line. Don't get me wrong. Say Bakhtiari and Beluga, good tackles.
Absolutely.
Devontae Adams is a very good player. Has come on leaps and bounds. He used to just be touchdown or bust. Randall Cobb has been playing off his name for the last 3 years. Jimmy Graham was done last year. Don't know why they bothered signing him. And it was the fact, he can play through his injury. Well, he can't play any worse with it. He does nothing. He doesn't get open. He doesn't separate. No. And if they're not going to use him in the red zone, there's not a lot of point having him. The young receivers have flashed, but they don't get them open. And it took Mike McCarthy 12 weeks to realise, this Jamal Williams is a better pass blocker than Aaron Jones. Yeah, it doesn't actually matter, does it? Play the more talented back. And so they don't have an awful lot of pieces around Rodgers that you consider top draw, especially when they are hampered as they are by this coach. I'm sure Mike McCarthy's a lovely chap, but unfortunately, nice guys tend not to finish, first, as we've seen.
I mean, if we Alex Geller had a tweet, and I want to use it. So these are the 4 wins. Miracle victory against the Chicago Bears due to Aaron Rodgers. Beat the Bills. Miracle victory by Aaron Rodgers against the 49ers. Beat the Dolphins. They allowed the Washington Redskins to score 31 points. As we know, that's +8 on any team in the NFC East is allowed to score.
Yeah. And also as well, I mean, speaking as someone who, has defended the late round quarterback strategy for quite some time. So the argument people always make is, well, Aaron Rodgers, he's pretty much nailed on, to be your top 1, 2 or 3 quarterbacks. Well, friends of the podcast, Denny and JJ,
yeah,
who have the podcast they have together, Living the Stream, where they advocate streaming candidates. The points per game average of our main quarterback streaming plays this year is currently better than Aaron Rodgers.
Well, there you go, Neil. I don't think we need to say any more on it.
Yeah. So this week we've seen. Tell me why we pay running backs.
Yeah.
Todd Gurley accepted, and tell me again why we don't take quarterbacks early. I'm dying to hear.
Yeah. I think if I'm Aaron Rodgers and put my foot down, I'm saying these people need to go, and we need to get people who can help me win championships. Because if I'm the most talented quarterback ever, then I should be doing better than this. It
should be pointed out, of course, though, that Drew Brees has only played in one Super Bowl as well. In the interest of impartiality,
and I think you'll find, Neil, that multiple years on this podcast we've said Sean Payton should either sort out his defense or get fired. And I think multiple years we've said he should be fired because regardless of him being a really good head coach, he's a terrible talent evaluator.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to say, Drew Brees has only been to one Super Bowl, but no one's telling me that Drew Brees is the most talented quarterback of all time.
No.
A lot of the stuff you hear about Drew Brees is how good Sean Payton is. No one tells me how good Mike McCarthy is.
There, but for the grace of God, of course.
Of course. Second plugged into the Mainz button is really we need to think about how bad Hugh Jackson and Todd Haley must be at their jobs. Because I'm going to give you some stats now. Baker Mayfield in his past 3 games, 29 of 42 for 297, 2 touchdowns and an interception. 17 of 20 for 216, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. 19 of 26 for 258 yards, 4 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. 2 of those 3 games he's had over 10 yards a reception. And I don't know what's better, those stats or Baker with his long arm shake hand that we've all had with that mate who's a mate of your mate who you don't actually like, or the way he said, at least now we've got people in the offensive room who know what they're doing.
In further, harp back to points I've made repeatedly in the past. In those 3 games where Baker Mayfield has turned the corner with the offense that is looks like a proper NFL offense. Jarvis Landry. Look what happens when you don't pepper an inefficient slot receiver with targets. Who'd have thought actually having a real NFL offense using the skill position players that you've got instead of the person who's averaging 6 yards a target would have some good results?
I think if you're a Cleveland Browns fan, you see light. Now, obviously, you can still balls this up by picking the wrong coach. You could say, "Oh, look, Greg Williams is doing a good job." Like that's a bad idea. No, but you look and you go, "Wow." On offense, young talent that makes plays. And we're talking Mayfield, the Chubba, Antonio Callaway, David Njoku, and you're like, apart from the fact you're concerned that Antonio Callaway's a head case, that's a lot of talent that you've got on the field at one time.
Mm-hmm. I mean, people are quick to point out how much of a good job so far it looks like John Dorsey has done with the draft picks. And he has. I say Baker Mayfield is exciting. Denzel Ward has been exceptional. Nick Chubb, well, they should never have signed Carlos Hyde. So that cancelled out. Yeah, you hit on Nick Chubb, but why did you sign Carlos Hyde? Why did you trade for Jarvis Landry and pay him all this money to then realise that your offence looks so much better when he's not a part of it? So as much as we can sing the praises of John Dorsey for how he's drafted, some of his personnel decisions prior to the draft and also from a cap management point of view, and this was his downfall in Kansas City, he can't manage a cap.
No, absolutely.
I'm not prepared to give him a full pass just yet.
I'm not, but I just think, and you think, this is why, and it links to the Green Bay situation, if you love them, set them free, and you've got to let these guys be with offensive coordinators and offensive head coaches, and give them a chance. I actually look now in the NFL, and I'm like, who in their right mind is hiring a defensive head coach?
there's only one team that I fear will do it again this year: the Jets, because that's all they ever do is hire defensive coaches and then put in out of their depth offensive coaches. One thing I will say, just a quick question. So the Browns play in the AFC North. I don't know if anyone's mentioned this. In 3 years, which of these 4 teams' quarterback do you want to have? In terms of where he is on the scale of starting quarterbacks in the NFL.
Right now, on Baker Mayfield.
Right now, you want Baker Mayfield. So in 3 years, presumably, you want Baker Mayfield as well.
So right now, if someone projected 3 years, I want Baker Mayfield. But that comes onto the final plugged into the Mainz button. So there's a massive debacle in Jacksonville going on right now, and they've got this dead weight of a quarterback who they've been trying to hire for 3 years. Mm-hmm. Is there a concern that if Baltimore and Buffalo don't make sure that they don't hide their quarterback's throwing abilities, which at the moment we're unsure of, although let's be fair to Lamar Jackson, he's only played 2 games and he was an excellent passer in college, that they become a Blake Bortles light situation. And to give you stats on Blake Bortles was the 3rd overall pick in 2014. Since that time, he leads the league in interceptions, pick sixes, and total turnovers. So for Baltimore and Buffalo, Neil, the question is, this is fine for 1 year with, running it 26 times in a game if you're Baltimore with your quarterback, and Buffalo winning a game last week, throwing it 9 times. But it's not sustainable, surely. No, it's not. And it's as you say, you look what the Ravens did in that first game against Cincinnati, where basically they ran the option. Let's be honest, they played the wishbone and ran that. Last week, the first half against Oakland, they tried to play Lamar Jackson as if he was a proper quarterback, and it stunk. So they went back to the triple option, single wing, wishbone, whatnot, and it looked good again. So now straight away you have a problem. Yeah, I know they've won both games. Yeah, he's put up loads of rushing yards. Lamar Jackson is smaller than us and doesn't look like he could probably take an awful lot more weight or muscle. If he's going to get hit, he's going to get hurt. What I will say about Lamar Jackson is, and this is to his credit, first of all, he was a really good thrower in college. Now I know it was Louisville, and you've got to question that and whatever. But also, when he runs, he doesn't run like Vic and RG3 ever did, i.e. down the middle of the field, dying to get hit. He runs 6 or 7 yards and then gets out of bounds. So I'm not saying that he won't get hit, but what I'm saying is you watch, say, Griffin and Vic, and even Luck when he first started, and it was like they wanted to get hit. I want to be in the game. Like Lamar Jackson wants no part of being hit, and rightfully so, he shouldn't want any part of being hit. I just look and think, like, you've got rookie quarterbacks, and we can use RG3 as an example on this. You've got rookie quarterbacks, and you scheme them to be successful. I've got no problem with that, right? But is that scheme going to be successful in 5 years? This is the question you have on. I now know in a quote-unquote NFL-style offense, Baker Mayfield can succeed. I know that. I've seen it. At the moment, I don't know if Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson can. I hope they can, because I'd rather the players were good than bad. That's just my opinion. I'd rather we drafted good quarterbacks, because the league is better with good quarterbacks. I don't need to see a load of teams with a load of garbage quarterbacks. I like Colt McCoy as a human. I don't need to see him playing NFL games. Don't need to see Cody Kessler starting NFL games. Don't need to see someone having a debate between Nick Mullins and CJ Beathard on who's the best to start in San Francisco. Not interested in it. I'd much prefer 32 franchise quarterbacks. Thank you very much. So the better we can get these guys prepared is good for me. But I just look and think, I think there's a massive change that needs to take place in those two franchises between, say, January and August next year, to make sure not only do they utilize the skill sets of their quarterbacks, but they also make them sustainable.
Yeah, it's as I say, first few games or first season, find out what they can do well and exploit it. But then when you've got a second off season, you've got to incorporate that into a proper NFL offense, while still retaining what they do well. It's the point I made today. Matt LaFleur was on Kyle Shanahan's coaching staff, and he was on Sean McVay's. So obviously, he's been, part of this. He's been around two of the best offensive minds in the NFL at the moment. Well, after watching this Titans offense, I think Matt LaFleur was sat at the back of these meetings drawing pictures of willies in the playbook, because his offense is abysmal to watch. Yeah, seriously, awful.
It's terrible, and I think we need to be clear when we say NFL offense, we don't mean like you can't run college schemes. Far from it, but we're just not 100% sure your quarterback running down the middle of the field or running 26 times is going to be successful. Like when we say run college offense, we mean Texas Tech and Oklahoma, not Georgia Tech or Navy.
Yeah, get the ball out.
Yeah,
use your playmakers. Let them make yards after the catch.
Again, I just want to say Blake Bortles was drafted 3rd overall in 2014. Since that time, he leads the league in interceptions, pick sixes, and turnovers. In January, we thought the Jacksonville Jaguars were going to win the Super Bowl. Now, they need to be blown up.
Yeah.
Multiple players are going to be on tremendously high contracts, and it's a waste of time because they have no quarterback.
No, and it comes down to the question of, again, it could be Blake Bortles there, it could be Cody Kessler, it could be Kaepernick, whoever you want. But if your offensive idea is we're just going to hand it off to the running back 30 times a game, well, I'm terribly sorry. I can stop you doing that, or at least I can stop you gaining yards doing that. And then we've seen this shutdown defense that they had last year got old awfully quickly.
Talk's a good game. Lots of talking, which I am all for, Neil. Absolutely love it. But you've got to back it up, because otherwise you're forced to shut up. Because what you don't need is Josh Allen doing your celebration in the own zone after he scored a rushing touchdown.
No. And he is trash. But ultimately, I can say that because I don't have to justify it.
If he won, though, he may be trash, right? That's cool, isn't that? But your defense didn't stop him, and he beat you.
Yeah, he would have had 100 yards rushing apart from the kneel down at the end.
Exactly. So sort your game out, or shut your mouth up.
Shut up, boy. Shut up.
Exactly. That's it from the news angle of this done. So let's go fantasy. As always, we try and help you individually on whether it be standard or DFS with a fancy darling and a fancy loser, and then we give you our teams of the week. First up is Neil, giving us who the person he thinks you should pick above all else this week. It's your fancy darling.
Hello, darling.
It's Kenny Golladay. Actually, to be honest, he's the only thing they've got left to pass to, the Lions. We talk about bad, anemic offences. That Lions won against the Bears. Now, I know the Bears are a good defence, but ye gods, it was pathetic. Seriously, the game-clinching interception, that might be one of the laziest run routes I think I've ever seen in my life from Michael Roberts of the Lions. I don't mind he didn't get his head round to wait for the ball coming. No, he was just running. Just without a goal, without a purpose. He was just running to the corner. They have, Marvin Jones is now on IR. It's not Andre Ellington, it's Bruce Ellington has come in. He's not been bad in the slot, but they're going to have to pass the ball against the Rams because they're going to have to go into serious keep-up. Golladay, in the last 3 games, so since they traded away Golden Tate, has had 35 targets, which was the most of any wide receiver since Week 10, and he's had 31% of the Lions' targets. And the Rams have allowed at least 230 receiving yards to wide receivers in 4 of the last 6 games. So as Golladay is the last man standing, he should be in for another big day in terms of targets and opportunities.
See previous comment on hiring defensive coach. We've got what some would say, me not among them, is a franchise quarterback and some interesting tools around him. Let's get a defensive coach who knows nothing about offense, but knows how to really annoy people.
Yeah, who'll persist. It's as I say, you can keep the offensive coordinator from last year. That's fine. That's good for continuity. But if you're a defensive coach and you're saying to him, we need to run the ball more, stop taking shots downfield, and say, yes, LeGarrette Blount did score 2 touchdowns and got 88 rushing yards. So what you're saying? You're going to build around him till Kerryon comes back? Any team that has a defensive head coach who doesn't do the inverse of what Sean McVay did, I'm taking the offense, you run the defense. It's easier to do that because offensively, you're planning all week what you're going to do with the ball. Defensively, you're speculating on what you might have to do. If your mindset as a franchise is to react, you're on the back foot. And that goes from the head coach and goes all the way down. So even if you have a great offensive coordinator, which we all criticise them, but I don't think the offense has been the problem in Carolina this season. So hats off to Norv Turner for making the best use of it. Ron Rivera is a defensive coach, but essentially he's handed the offense over to Norv Turner. That's good, but now your defense is broke. But ultimately,
your defense is so broke that, and we'll come on, and just spoiler alert, we'll come on to this guy later. You allowed someone who was being held, literally someone was holding his hand to catch it with his other arm.
It was just to make him feel good.
We're talking about losers, Neil. Let's get on to your fantasy loser.
This one pains me a great deal because he has been a beacon of light in a sea of crap. I just have a bad feeling about George Kittle this week. They're playing the San Francisco 49ers are playing the Seahawks. Seahawks have only allowed 2 tight ends to go over 50 yards against them this season, while only 2 have more than 3 receptions. And those 2 didn't exactly do an awful lot with their receptions. It was Jeff Swain had 5 for 47, and Trey Burton had 4 for 20. George Kittle does average 3 fewer PPR points with Nick Mullins at quarterback than without him. And Mullins, after that first game, has gone downhill. So it's a worrying trend downwards. You're probably going to play Kittle, but you're not going to feel too great about it.
Now, I'm all for saying that the season was over once Jimmy Garoppolo got injured. But are we allowed to have a quick comment about the roster management in San Francisco?
Do you remember when John Lynch was lauded for stealing picks from the Bears?
Yeah, you got that guy who he picked isn't playing anymore.
And the first round they got after that is going to be, if there's any justice in the world, flipping burgers if he's lucky.
Yeah, exactly, Neil. Exactly. Yeah, Jimmy Garoppolo ain't saving this team. And I think we were all quite wrong on how good San Francisco were going to be.
Well, give us our due. At the start in our pre-season, we did say that this team was overrated because aside from Garoppolo, they didn't have an awful lot else.
Yeah, we were right on that. It just, you look and you're like, oh god, it's much worse. I think it's much worse than we thought, though. I thought the talent was better than that, but obviously I was wrong.
I mean, 2 years now under Shanahan, apart from that 5-game winning stretch we went last season, they've been mostly awful. But it just seems that there's that much other bad in the NFL. Shanahan seems to be getting something of a pass.
He's definitely getting a get out of jail free card. It does help that his former offense in Atlanta's putrid as well.
Yeah, and the fact he's on a 6-year deal, whereas most NFL coaches aren't. So
correct. That's it on Fancy Darling and Loser. Let's focus on DFS now and give you our daily fancy teams of the week.
Mainz and Dutz. Daily Fantasy Team of the Week.
Show me the money.
As we said previously, I love being right, and I was right in the 25.9 points I got with Baker Mayfield, but boy was I right with the 52.7 I got from CMC. Ironically, only 13.5 from Odell Beckham Jr. Yeah, some you win, some you lose.
It's because it wasn't part of their game plan to attack the Eagles secondary, according to Odell.
Well, there was the second half strategy was not to give it to their other best player.
Well, they were trying to spell him.
Yeah, for how long though? The quarters. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah. The second half's 30 minutes. Yeah. Like, how much of a breather does he need? It's an hour and a half.
Marcus Grant says he's got to be fresh for the playoff run in 2019.
Just fire him. Like, that retread is not working.
Who'd have thought?
I know. And
It's the way he looks.
Who would have thought that keeping Eli Manning and drafting a running back would have been a bad idea for the overarching thing of the franchise? Not suggesting that Saquon Barkley isn't amazing. He is. And I was also heartened to see that the Eagles had watched the Tampa Bay Buccaneers playbook of not covering him in the red zone so he could walk in for a touchdown.
Yeah. It's John Bouchard and James Seltzer on the Go Birds pod did say, if you look at Pat Shurmur, now imagine him angry, because you can't. You can imagine him, after that game, storming into the changing room, the players have let him down, and him literally, they're waiting for the explosion, and he just comes out with, I'm very, very upset.
Yeah. I am definitely glad that you beat them, because that I couldn't be arsed with any more of that. Ooh, we're just going to run the table. No, you're not, you crap.
Yeah, and as we say, I'll keep dragging her up. Donovan McNabb has as many wins in the last 22 Eagles v Giants games as Eli Manning. 4-0 to McNabb, 4-18 for Eli. 2 Super Bowls, Canton-bound Manning.
And Phil Rivers isn't going anyway. Let's start with who's your quarterback, Neil.
Quarterback is Case Keenum. Denver Broncos at Cincinnati Bengals. Keenum's 5,200. The Bengals have allowed 3 or more passing touchdowns in 4 of their last 5, and in the one game where they didn't allow 3 more passing touchdowns, they allowed a quarterback to run all over them. Keenum's not been terrible of late. He's a mid-level QB2, but as I say, this Bengals defense needs picking to pieces, especially with Hugh the Winner Jackson running it.
He's been sneaky okay, Case Keenum. Like, when you looked at the quarterback sweepstakes, you thought Denver have screwed up here, because they haven't got anyone. And then you're like, although Kurt played well on Sunday night, we've got a quarterback whose leg's broken. Kurt's Kurt, and it's not that bad if you're Denver, I guess.
Keenum's he's not been terrible, but
that's what I'm saying. He's not. You could have been worse, is what I'm saying. Like
what's helped is he hasn't thrown an interception in the last 3 games, where he'd thrown 1 in every single game leading up to that. The downside is, though, that he's averaging 1 touchdown a game, so that doesn't exactly boost your production.
It also helps that you pull Philip Lindsay out your backside to assist you in offensive plays. My quarterback, although I'm concerned on his long-term safety and security at the quarterback position, I'm looking forward to his 26 rushes this week, and that's Lamar Jackson. He's playing the Atlanta Falcons, who aren't good. That's another system that needs blowing up. Unfortunately, Lamar Jackson's 5,900. Don't expect many throws, but I do expect 100 yards on the ground.
Yeah. It's as Rich Rebar calls it, the Konami appeal of a rushing quarterback. He only has to run for 40 yards, and he's got you the same number of points as if he'd thrown a touchdown. So
Exactly. Who's your running back 1, Neil?
Running back 1, 7,800, Kareem Hunt. Chiefs are playing at Oakland. Raiders have allowed 100 or more rushing yards to running backs in their last 6 games. Kareem Hunt has an 81% opportunity share this season, so he should get all the rushes, all the running back targets, and all the points.
My running back 1 is a Run CMC. I'm doubling down. He's 8,800, which is a lot of money. But you know what, Dutton? He got 50 points last week, and who did he play?
Seattle.
This week, he's playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So, yes, please. Norv loves giving him the ball. 100 yards on the ground, 100 yards in the air. Okay, you may not get the touchdowns because they're not something you can rely on. But I think you can rely on, he's going to run it a lot and they're going to give him the ball a lot. And it's PPR.
The 5th player since 2000 to have 100 rushing yards and a touchdown, 100 receiving yards and a touchdown in the same game.
Really talented footballer.
Yeah, and they're using him properly. They aren't just using him like a souped-up Danny Woodhead. He is actually a running back.
Exactly. I think you look and you're like, okay, we argue the draft position or whatever. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter now. He's talented and they're using him correctly, and that's a good thing. Who's your running back 2, Neil?
Someone who didn't let me down last week, Matt Breida. As I say, the Seahawks are coming off a game where they bled fancy points to Christian McCaffrey. They have allowed 100 rushing yards to running backs in 3 of the last 4 games. They've also allowed a running back to amass at least 40 receiving yards in their last 3. Breida has at least 130 yards from scrimmage in each of his last 2 games. He's 5,800.
Nice. My running back 2 is Tariq Cohen. He's playing the New York Football Giants. Not many. Tariq Cohen is a boom or bust on the run, as in he probably won't get that much run, as they are starting to use Jordan Howard more. However, he's in for all the pass plays, because as Neil has absolutely told us a million times, Jordan Howard can't catch for shizzle.
Bless him.
So PPR heavy against a stinking Giants defense, who, let's be honest, were in the game, and then Josh Adams literally ran all over them. That's actually how they lost the game, from a lot of good running from Josh Adams. So I'm going to take a running back, and that's Tariq Cohen.
That's the worry, though, that the blueprint we've seen the Giants, they are literally, I think 2 of their last 3 lead running backs against them have got 100 rushing yards and have averaged 6 yards a carry. So they're being gashed on the ground. It could then be a Jordan Howard day.
Yeah, I think you got to take that gamble. I think what I'd say is the way the Bears play is they're going to scheme the first 15 plays Andy Reid style, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'd expect Cohen to be on a field for 8 or 9 of them, and get a touch with 6 of them, because that's what they do. Like that's what they've done. That's what they've done every game. Who's your wide receiver 1, Neil?
Wide receiver 1 is Stephon Diggs. The Vikings are at New England, 7,600. Diggs has double-digit targets in each of his last 4 games. He's been the wide receiver 5, 4 and 5 in his last 3 weeks. The Patriots have allowed at least 160 receiving yards to wide receivers in 6 of their last 7 games, and a wide receiver touchdown in each of the last 3. The Vikings only have wide receivers to throw to. They don't really use the running backs. I know Dalvin Cook did score a touchdown, but he's not getting peppered with targets. Kyle Rudolph had 7 receptions, but they all came in the first half, and then he disappeared. And to be fair, he's disappeared all season. Diggs has been better than Adam Thielen over the last month at least. And I think Thielen might be the one that Belichick tries to take away. And Stephon Diggs can benefit from that, because he's just insanely good.
The major fear for the Minnesota Vikings, based on what I'm seeing on Twitter and via text messages, is did they actually win this game? Because my understanding is if you beat the New England Patriots this year, you become cursed like you've been a house on an Indian burial ground, and you don't win any more games.
It's like trying to take the Grail out of the temple at the end of the Last Crusade.
Exactly.
You have chosen poorly.
My wide receiver 1 is Neil's fancy darling. It's Kenny Golladay. He's playing the LA Rams, as you said. I think he's the only wide receiver left on the Detroit Lions, and the Rams have allowed receiving yards quite a bit this year. I don't know if you noticed, but in the last game they conceded 51 points. Who's your wide receiver 2, Neil?
Kenny Golladay, 6,700.
My wide receiver 2 is the handcuff to Neil's Case Keenum. I've got Emmanuel Sanders. He's 6,300. He was, I need someone from the Denver Broncos receiving team playing the Cincinnati Bengals, and that's who I picked.
Bengals have allowed a wide receiver touchdown in 9 of 11 games this season. Emmanuel Sanders, a season low in terms of routes run last week. However, he was targeted on 50% of them. He had 12 targets, and 5 of his targets were in the red zone. So obviously the Broncos are looking to use him in those high percentage areas. And if you're wondering why I know this stat about Emmanuel Sanders, it's because he's my wide receiver 3, 6,300.
I was going to say, there's absolutely no way you haven't picked him based on the fact you picked Case Keenum. My wide receiver 3 is another player playing in the Carolina-Tampa Bay game. As you can see, pick on bullying is allowed in DFS, and me and Neil have gone heavy on it. I'll pick DJ Moore. He's 5,600. With Funchess being injured in recent weeks, DJ Moore has become a much bigger in the offense and has been excellent, and was excellent last week.
Mm-hmm.
I like him. Who's your tight end, Neil?
Same game. Cameron Bray. Had him last week. I did eventually swap out Njoku because I was scared. And then obviously when Bray scored a touchdown, I was very happy. And then Njoku scored one, and I went into the mega death tilt, as Denny would call it. The Panthers allow the most fantasy points per game to tight ends. They haven't allowed a tight end in either of the last two games, but they were against Detroit and Seattle, and they don't believe in tight ends. Certainly don't after watching Michael Roberts amble into the corner. Brait averages 8.47 fantasy points in games in which Fitzpatrick does not play, as opposed to 5.3 when he does. So he has Jameis Winston's eye. He may be in line for a few more targets if Deshaun Jackson sits, which looks like he might do because he's got a hand injury.
Cameron Brait has caught 28% of all the touchdowns thrown by Jameis Winston since he entered the league. Boom.
He loves him.
He loves him. My tight end is another man who loves a touchdown this year, and that's Eric Ebron. Unfortunately, given the fact that we love 1920s gangster Jack Doyle, but he's at IR now. Therefore, Eric Ebron has won that fight. He won the fight in the red zone every single week, but hopefully he'll win it in other places as well, and Andrew Luck will find him. Indianapolis are destroying Jacksonville this week.
Yeah, and we've seen that when teams really commit to using the tight end against Jaguars, they can't stop them. Let's say, pull one out for Jack Doyle. Send one of his to the hospital. He sends when he goes to the morgue and all that. But he'll be back.
Can we pour one out for Jack Doyle, considering we're probably in the middle of prohibition right now?
Well, that's it. We can pour one out, but we've got to go to a pet shop after hours and do it quietly.
Excellent. Who's your flex, Neil?
My flex is David Njoku, so I'm having them both in this week. I'm not getting caught out. The Texans have allowed a touchdown to tight end in each of their last three games, including a 61-yard score by Jonnu Smith on Monday night. Just let them go, boys. That's fine. That's all right. Njoku only actually ran 10 routes against the Bengals, but was targeted 5 times and caught all 5 for 63 yards and a score. He averages 11.5 PPR points in games with Baker Mayfield. So he may be working his way back from injury. As I say, he's only ran 20 combined routes in the last 2 games, and Cleveland have won both of them. But there's a chance that they may not be able to run as much as they like against Houston. So there's a chance that Njoku's going to have to run more routes, and therefore his opportunities will be increased. He's 4,300.
Who would have thought if we drift back 10 weeks to week 3 that would be like Texans against Browns? That's a good game with 2 talented teams.
Sneaky good game.
That is sneaky good.
Although this throwing twice to DeAndre Hopkins in the red zone and not targeting DeAndre Hopkins there, that stops. Enough of that.
It does. It probably does stop. Although when you've won 8 on the spin, you can do as you wish. Good job there. Good job there. Quarterback's rubbish.
Yeah, no more there. No more.
My flex is my second more in my team. Sneaky lover, I guess, from Danny Kelly from Ringer fame, and our friend Rob Statton. That's David Moore of the Seattle Seahawks, who's come from nowhere to have a major input in the Seahawks offense. He's 4,300, and if you haven't had the chance to watch his touchdown last week, when literally the guy was holding his other arm and he just caught it, it's a really good play, and I think he's got a lot of talent.
They want to hold his hand. What can I say?
Correct. Who's your defence and special teams, Neil?
Running back, defence stack. I've got the Kansas City Chiefs, 2,500. 29.5% of Raiders drives this season have ended with a score. That's the 4th lowest in the league. They're allowing a sack on 8.5% of their dropbacks. That's the 8th highest rate in the league. Defences have scored double-digit points against the Raiders 6 times in 11 games this season. And 13.1% of offensive drives against the Chiefs have ended in a turnover. That's only 13th in the league. But I think when you put it all together, this looks good for the Chiefs. Because, let's be honest, the Raiders are going to have to chase.
The Raiders are doing really well at being really bad. My defence and special teams is the Rams. They're playing the Lions. Don't know if you know, although they conceded 51 points to the Chiefs, they turn them over 5 times and scored 2 defensive scores. And this week they're playing the Lions, who have got absolutely zero chance of blocking Aaron Donald.
That stat I love is, that Aaron Donald has, was it 13.5 sacks on the season, and has been double teamed on 72% of his plays. I'm not even sure that's allowed.
It shouldn't be allowed when you've got someone of the defensive talent and schema of Wade Phillips as your defensive coordinator. It then becomes a cheat code at that point.
Because literally, what are you supposed to do to stop him? Can't put 3 on him. Again, oh fine, we'll just not block Ndamukong Suh as opposed to have one person on him. We won't bother with Michael Brockers. It's not. Seriously, the man's a wrecking machine. They should pay him.
Well, they have paid him. But the question we always have is, why did it take so flipping long? Let's recap, Neil. Who's your quarterback?
Case Keenum.
I've got Lamar Jackson, running back 1.
Green Hunt.
I've got Run CMC, running back 2.
Matt Breida.
I've got Tariq Cohen, wide receiver 1.
Stefan Diggs.
I've got Kenny Golladay, wide receiver 2.
Kenny Golladay.
I've got Emmanuel Sanders, wide receiver 3.
Emmanuel Sanders.
I have DJ Moore, who's your tight end.
Cameron Brate.
I have Eric Ebron, who's your flex.
Njoku.
I have David Moore, who's your defense and special teams.
Kansas City.
I've got the LA Rams. Neil, that's it for this show, but where can people catch you between now and Sunday?
Between now and Sunday, please go to number 5, read my weekly stats article. Go to Rotoviz, read my wide receiver usage report. There's bits in there about Stephon Diggs, Emmanuel Sanders, and a few more. Towards the end of the week, I'll have my game level similarity projections for quarterbacks and tight ends, and I'll be back with Nat and Mike on TalkSport 2 just before kickoff on Sunday.
Fantastic, Neil. Obviously, combined, we are at Waxing_Lyrical. I am at Mainz7. Week 13 is upon us. We are close to December. We're smelling those playoffs. Enjoy this week. Go well, and these top guys are out.